How to make a decision and not regret it. It's already kind of hard to make decisions, but on top of that, regret sometimes comes into play. And as someone in the past who really struggled to make decisions, I would just sit on two decisions and go back and forth thinking so much about it and never acting. And when I did act, sometimes later I came to regret the decision. So with this video, I plan to show you how to make the decision and go through that process, but on the second piece, how to not regret that decision. So I promise you by the end of this video, you will understand how to make a decision, but also how not to regret the decision that you do choose to make. With that being said, my name's Richardson. I'm a coach here at Life on Your Terms, and I make these videos to help pass on my knowledge, to pass on my experience, so you can work through these issues quicker than I ever could. So when making a decision and not regretting it, the first step is going to be to clarify and commit. You can just think of the two C's. When you're trying to make a decision, think two C's. So you're thinking of, how do I clarify what is all the information I need to know to make the decision? And then from there, once I've clarified, I then need to commit and own the decision I make. So let's go through the clarification process. With clarifying, you want to think long-term versus short-term. This rule kind of saved me in high school and college. When I was thinking about decisions, obviously dumb decisions can happen in high school and college, and I would always think to myself, okay, does this help me in the short term or does this benefit me in the long term? And that thinking saved me, I think, a lot of heartache and headache and everything. So a lot of problems. So you can always think to yourself, does this decision align with your long-term goals, your long-term who the person you want to be? Or is this short-term thinking for instant gratification, stuff like that? So think about that when you're clarifying, is long-term versus short-term. On top of that, when you're clarifying, you want to think about, is this decision in line with your visualization and your quarterly objectives? And if you don't have those set, the way you can set a visualization is to take the balance wheel in the description below, because what you're going to do is you're going to take that balance wheel. It's going to give you the professional, relationships, health, and resources. And then from there, what you're going to do is you're going to create a visualization asking yourself, what does amazing look like in each of those areas? And there's subcategories for each of them, and you can go through those as well. You're going to ask yourself, what does amazing look like? Now, once you have that visualization on a 12-month time frame, a 5-year time frame, every decision can then be looked at through the lens of that. You can look at, okay, does this decision line up with my visualization? So for example, let's say we're trying to clarify between two companies to work at. One company has a terrible work environment, it pays you a lot of money. Another company has long-term growth. You start out with a lower pay scale, but the job environment is amazing. Let's say your visualization is to work at a company where you feel excited to go to, where you can make an impact and you can ascend throughout the company, continuing to make more and more of an impact. Well, obviously the company number 2 would be in line with your visualization, although it may be hard to make that decision if you do not have this visualization because of the money of the first company. So it's important to ask yourself when you're clarifying is this in line with my visualizations? On top of that, you can ask yourself, is this in line with my quarterly objectives? I like to set quarterly objectives, again, around the balance wheel for each quarter, looking at certain things I want to accomplish. And then decisions within that quarter are completely based upon that. Not completely, but almost entirely based upon that. For example, last quarter, one of my goals was to make sure I see my friends at least once a month. And so for me, I made sure to make decisions that put me with opportunities to be able to see them. That kind of makes sense that when you're clarifying, it's going to be really easy because you're going to think long-term versus short-term. You're also going to look at your visualization, your quarterly objectives to base most of your action on. Now, on top of clarifying, committing, if you're still struggling with clarification, you can also use the breakdowns. Is this a need or a want? This works really well with purchases. If you're trying to buy something, you're like, do I need this or do I want this right now? And that can really, and then you can lean back on your visualizations, your quarterly objectives, and that can really help you make that decision. On top of needs and wants, you can also make a pros and cons list. I've used that many times and I've kind of broken them down. And I can look at each side that are right in front of me once I write it down, and that tends to be really helpful for me. So that's the clarification process. Now with the committing process, you need to commit and embrace the decision you've made. Once you have all the information you need to make the decision, it is time to commit to that decision. So let's say you go work at company B where they have that ascension and you start lower pay, but your goals have a higher pay and you want to move up. Well, it's time to commit to that. There's no more overthinking about company A. You have committed. And once you've committed, you have to kind of tear away that overthinking. That's what I'm gonna get into the next point. But on top of committing and embracing, you have to realize that by committing, you are no longer allowing missed opportunities to occur. Because what can happen in those two job scenarios that if you don't make a decision for weeks, they will fill the position. So you wanna commit and embrace because now you are not missing any opportunities. That moves you to the second point of not regretting. You've now made the decision, but how do you make sure that you do not regret the decision? One mindset you can carry with you is that to look back and realize you made the best decision possible with the info you've had. And you know what? Sometimes we take ourselves too serious. So one thing or hack I like to use, I like to look back at situations and just laugh at myself. To know that yes, if I had the information that I did today, I would have made a different decision. But I didn't, and I made the best decision possible. So I do not regret the decision I made, because if you go through the clarification process every time, you will make sure that you make the best decision possible every time with the information you have, which is something you can lean on to make sure you don't regret the decisions you have. Now, on top of carrying that piece of mindset with you, another thing you could take with you is that there is nothing you can do about the decision you made. You maybe have made that decision 6 months ago and now you're regretting it, but the thing is, there's really nothing you can do other than learn from the decision. The other thing you do is look back and be like, okay, I went through the clarification process, but I didn't consider this factor. Or you know what, I was too impulsive with this decision and I didn't sit on it for 2 days or whatever. You need to look at that there's nothing you can do about it other than learn, so there's no necessarily reason or wasted energy to be spent on regretting it. And I know it's not easy to move past that regret, but those two mindset shifts can really help you. Now, on top of not being able to do anything and you made the best decision possible with the information you have, is the final thing is that there will never be a perfect time to make a decision. So maybe you're regretting buying a house when you did, or maybe you're regretting exiting that relationship or exiting that job. The thing is there's never a perfect time to do any of those things. Any major life decisions that come with regret, there's really never a perfect time to do it. Now, I'm not saying to act on impulsivity and just do it right away, but I'm just saying there's not a perfect time to do it. So don't be upset if there was a little bit better time frame 6 months later for you to do that, because there's no truly perfect time. Now, on top of no perfect time, few decisions are ever fully final. I have a story about this where when I was in high school, I didn't make the best decision and I ended the relationship who is now my fiance. And with that being said, I ended that relationship and I felt like my life was over after that. I went through a really hard time, but we ended up getting back together. So few decisions are actually fully final. So with regretting decisions, you just have to learn, realize that you made the best decision with the info possible, maybe even laugh at yourself a little bit, and realize that few decisions are fully final. With that being said, that was how to make a decision and not regret it. If you liked that video, please leave a comment telling me what you liked, because then I know for future videos what videos to make based upon the comments. I made this video actually because of another video I made about decisions that did really well. So if you like these videos, leave a comment. And also take that balance wheel now, because that'll really help you with the 2 C's of clarifying and committing.